Continuing from that point, we got as you guys probably saw, our mock draft is a little bit of botched from a trade that happened maybe 30 minutes after we finished doing our mock draft.
I
We
think
had
48, actually, to be precise.
Yeah.
48. I thought it was 42.
Round up.
We had Jared Goff get moved to Detroit, along with two firsts and a third, if I'm not mistaken, from Matt Stafford. And if I'm Matt Stafford, I'm living life. I mean, who cares? Like, you can argue who won what, which team, but Matt Stafford is the ultimate winner out of this. Chris, I feel like you beg to differ because I've heard you say otherwise, but I think Matt Stafford is one of the top quarterbacks in the league. You kind of forget about that because Detroit's like a black hole of suck when it comes to talent. You kind of forget about players. And people really forget how damn good he is. I mean, he's even a man who's gotten praise from Aaron Rodgers, who praised nobody but himself. Phenomenal arm talent, great pocket passer. And with the weapons he has in LA, I think he's going to be an MVP conversation next season.
So I think, to answer your original question, I think he's a top 15 quarterback.
15?
I do think he's been stuck on a bad team. I have been always over critical of him. In the sense of, I just don't see how you can possibly put him top 10 or top 5 at all. His stats identically line up with Jameis Winston. So other than completion percentage, I think it's about 8 points higher. And again, Jameis Winston, I don't think he should be a starter, but I think there's times where, like, I think next year he's going to start for New Orleans. I don't think they're going to draft the quarterback unless they draft Mac Jones or Trask, but we didn't have that in our mock drafts. But I just don't really see how you can completely say yet that he is this great top 5 quarterback. Again, maybe I'm wrong. That's always how it goes. I'm either right or wrong. My gut tells me that I am going to be wrong and that he is going to flourish in LA. And, I think he's a great guy. Seems to be a good leader. I know in that game years ago against the Browns at home, he played with I think like a separated shoulder, to win the game. So I have nothing but the utmost respect for him, but I just don't think you can really say right now, he just hasn't won. And I understand the talent may not always be there, but it's not like he didn't have nobodies on the team, because I know the argument with Jameis Winston was, well, he had Mike Evans, Chris Godwin, Scotty Miller. So how can
Bruce
you really
Arians
say
as your head coach?
Yeah. So it's like, how can you compare that to Matt Stafford and look what Matt Stafford did, which I agree. It's a really good point. At the end of the day, he started off with Megatron, which is pretty big. And now, who's it? Galladay and
Marvin Jones.
Marvin Jones. Thank
Even
you.
Hawkinson too. He stepped up.
And I will say, so Hawkinson, and not to get derailed too much, but Hawkinson, the first year, his rookie year, didn't really look too good. And this year he had a really good year. So if I'm a Detroit fan,
you can't say be optimistic because they've had a
Jared Goff, but the reason you got 2 1s and a 3 wasn't because of how great Matt Stafford is. It's because of the contract of Jared Goff. No other team would ever pick that up. And that's a big thing.
Or
right. What were you going to say, Evan?
No, I was like, or is it like a perfect like mesh of like the demand that McVay holds, like the praise that he holds for Stafford and that he's willing to give up that much?
I mean, it's clearly both. I think at the very least, I think Stafford was, let's agree, he's a 1 and a 3 for sure. But I mean, you really look at it, you swap quarterbacks. Who's a 30-something-year-old quarterback for a 20-something-year-old quarterback. Obviously, Stafford, I think, is better than Goff, even though Goff's been through Super Bowl. But that's the debate for another time. And then in terms of the picks, 1 and 3, I'll give him. But I think there's an extra 1 because of that contract. I mean, that contract was really bad. And so I know we talked about it either last podcast that you guys had me on for, or we spoke about it together as friends. But there's a lot of flack with the Rams, saying they don't have first-round picks for the next couple of years, and how are they going to have a future? And look at the Seahawks. Now, I know they haven't won, since 2015 or whatever year it was, but they haven't used the first round draft pick in I think 7 or 8 years, and they constantly make the playoffs. Obviously, you want to get to that Super Bowl. That should always be the goal. I rather. So someone asked me this question earlier this year, and it said, "Well, would you rather, in a decade, would you rather go to the playoffs 10 times and not win, or go to the playoffs once and win a Super Bowl?" And I said, "Go to the playoffs once and win a Super Bowl easily."
I mean, that's a pretty easy as a Giants fan too, because that's exactly what's happened to us at this point.
So I think for both teams, it actually worked out pretty well. Detroit, I mean, they do have a decision to make. I was still thinking about it when I went to sleep that night, and I was like, I wouldn't necessarily count out them draft not, or I wouldn't count out the Lions of drafting quarterback. Like, put the pressure on Goff. Say like, hey man, listen, if you're not working out here, we have a guy to replace you.
Mm-hmm.
And they now have the future picks. Obviously, it's not for this year, but they're saying, we have the future. We have some core guys we're going to want to re-sign. So let's figure it out here. Like, let's see if you're the real deal.
I forget his name, but I really like their head coach. If you saw him, how he was speaking,
Dan Campbell.
He seems like one of those, like we always said, like our Joe Judge, Blind Forest type guys, where he's just a hard nose.
Do you want to save that for when we talk about head coaches?
Yeah, we'll get to that. We'll dive into it a little bit, but it seems like for the first time in a while, things are going in the right direction in Detroit. The picks are there. Okay. The coach is coming along. Once again, there's always been a lot of false hope in Detroit, but
I think that's easy to say. I think that's easy to say when there's a new head coach. It's like, oh, everything's great now.
Well, yeah, no, like, not everything's great, but it's like, okay, like I'm like okay with it.
Well, yeah,
they have some picks. I mean, again, not this year, maybe not next year, but it's like, if you hit on some draft picks, they could be pretty good. And I hate to say it, obviously every year you want to make the playoffs. Every year you want to win a Super Bowl. That should always be the goal. But Detroit has just been not good for so long now.
Yeah.
And I think they need to, kind of like what the Bills did, bring the culture back, win a playoff game, know what it feels like to win, know what it feels like to win a big game. So, I mean, when was the last time they were in a big playoff game against Dallas?
Did they make it like a earlier, like the 2010s? I think they made like one
It was
year
when they played Dallas, and there was that BSPI call or whatever it was. So, new era for them. If I'm Detroit, I'm like, all right, we're not going to be good the next 2 years, but let's see what we draft and see if we can muster up something. So
and also
identity. I think that's what they don't have one.
Yeah. So. Yeah, and also the their GM Brad Holmes, he's actually from the Rams organization. If you don't know that, so little connection there.
Maybe for all you know, maybe there's a fire lit under Jared Goff's ass. I mean, for God's sakes, the man went from the sunny state of California, nice, pool in the backyard, and LA, and now you went to Detroit. I mean, people are like, oh, the downtown's not too bad. It's kind of nice and spots. I'm like,
no, but
no one wants to play in Detroit.
It's gotten better, I guess, but it's still Detroit.
It might be the worst city when it comes to like where people want to live and stay and play. It's cold, it rains, it snows.
And it has the worst sports franchises too.
Yeah, it's just no fun. I mean, your team dumped you. You're going to Detroit. There's nothing seems to. I think this is bold now. I think Jared Goff could very much go to die in Detroit. This could be, the end of his.
He went to school at Cal, so this is. I know it's stupid, and I know they play in a dome, but this could be a big difference for him too with the attitude, because out west it's a lot more relaxed. And I know they ran out of patience with him. I'm not saying that. But I'm saying, there's a little bit more pressure to win here. It's kind of like the Giants, like the Cowboys. Even though they're not the best, there's an expectancy at a higher level. And especially in Detroit, they love their football. And if you don't perform right away, you're going to get some flack. So I want to see, A, if he caves in and if the production decreases, or B, if, that happens, he just can't respond to the criticism. So
I mean, think about it. He went from like the best case scenario possible in LA with the weapons, the young, talented head coach, the beautiful state, to just everything seems to be going wrong in Detroit. New head coach, weapons a little shaky. You just don't know what you're going to get from him. And then on top of it, you kind of forget that Jared Goff quietly got benched at the end of last season. I mean, people like he had a thumb injury. I get it, but for God's sake, when he came in, had to play like the last 3 quarters of that game, he looked pretty damn healthy to a lot of people.
Even the divisional round too.
Exactly. I think that thumb I'm not doubting that thumb was tweaked, but I think he was healthy enough to play. Like if that was a higher tier quarterback, they would have been playing in that game. And I think they wanted to see what their backup quarterback had. And they really didn't think they had. I think they thought that their backup quarterback had more of a shot of winning than Jared Goff.
Yes, he has more of a spark. John Wolford, just a little more dynamic. Yeah, and like I was about to like hit the points that you said, Pete, about like don't forget, like when he came out as a rookie, he was like already labeled a bust. Like he sucked. He didn't even he sat behind Case Keenum before the Case Keenum had that magical run with the Vikings.
Minnesota.
So, and he was playing under Jeff Fisher, which did not end well for him. And it felt like McVay was the perfect coach. And everything's got to be perfect for him. And one thing that's a question mark is not even just the weapons, in my opinion. It's the O-line, because that guy's a statue in the pocket. And oh my God.
I mean, yeah, his game is as vanilla as it comes to me.
So,
like Jared Goff's game as a quarterback, I
Yeah.
mean, it's just bland. It's nothing special. Average arm strength, can make some decent throws, but nothing out of the ordinary, and has like questionable decision making.
He got nervous against the New York Jets.
Like, I wouldn't be mad if I had him in my quarterback room. I mean, like it gets a lot worse in Jared Goff, but he doesn't have as high of a ceiling as a lot of these guys. You know what you're getting with him. You're getting mediocre quarterback play, nothing higher, nothing too much lower. And it's just,
And I think he does not have good intangibles and good mentals, in my opinion, because it feels like he needs to
Everything.
coast off of the high confidence. If it doesn't, I barely see any comebacks from him, in my opinion.
he's a game manager.
Not even, I guess so, but like even that he just needs like those big spark plays to like boost his confidence and so he can make plays. Against the Jets, it wasn't happening. What happened? They lost.
It's funny that you said this because I wanted to say it a little bit before, but you guys segued right into it. So I remember watching the first game that the Rams played this season against the Cowboys. And again, Cowboys every year, great defense, great on paper, but injuries, some whatever.
Ego.
But I was watching the game and I noticed, they would run screens like every 3 plays.
Mm-hmm.
I'm a big screen guy. I think if done well and correctly, can chunk up a lot of yards. But it didn't seem like that. Seemed more like a relying on because he cannot throw the ball down the field. And it's interesting to me because in the Super Bowl run that they had, he wasn't bombing the ball down the field, but he was throwing, these 15 to 20 yard passes. Like it was nothing. And now you kind of watch it and, is it a mental thing? Is it the thumb? Is it the pressure? What is it? And throughout the year, it consisted of, and going back to what Evan said, him needing the spark plays were only screens. They're under Robert Woods or Cooper Kupp or these quick outs or something that the wide receivers would do the work. And so, again, not taking credit away, the passing yards still go to Jared Goff. But at the same time, he's not really doing all the work.
Yeah.
And so,
yeah.
Again, got to know your strengths. I get that. But I think it just comes down to a point of, well, maybe he's just not that great. And so, I don't really think he's a top 5 or even really top 10 quarterback in the league. But at the end of the day, he's been to Super Bowl. He clearly, again, you look at that Rams team, that was a great Rams team. It still is a great Rams team. In my opinion, I think they should be the favorite in the NFC to go to the Super Bowl next year, especially with the addition of Stafford. But that being said, Detroit doesn't seem like it's going to work out too well.
Yeah.
Again, maybe I'm wrong, but
The only
things that only the viewer can see from the outside in, it doesn't look good.
the only way I can see this working out for Jared Goff is him mentally being like, all right, let's do it. Because apparently, like, I saw like a tweet that said, like, from a quote that said, like, oh, I'm happy to be somewhere that they want me.
Appreciate him.
Yeah. So, like, maybe that could be a spark plug in
It's
some
like a new
way.
start for him.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And so where it's like I can elevate some of these guys and be more confident in my play. And yeah, I saw when the Rams played Miami this year, and I saw just the confidence was just and all the play calling was very a lot of screen passes, flat to like places of flats, like, and some run plays as well. So there's the lack of trust. And I want to talk quickly about the Rams. This like has really shortened the amount, like it's really shortened like the leeway, the window, yeah. And there is like this has got to work for McVay. You can't have another 9-7 season.
This is a do or die season.
Exactly. He's really just like, okay, this is what we need, and it's a big risk, and they're going to lose some players. John Johnson, the safety's on the market, and he's a pretty solid safety. I know
it's not can't pay all those players.
Exactly, and I kind of thought of this earlier today. I'm like, did the Rams kind of panic after the Super Bowl loss by overpaying for Jalen Ramsey to be like, we need something up. Here's Jalen Ramsey. Let's go get him. Like, did they?
I would have still gotten out and gotten Jalen Ramsey because
really for that price for someone
too much. I mean, you could say he's the best cornerback. Like, I think there's other guys that are better in my opinion, but he's a top 3, top 5 cornerback no matter what. He will take receivers out of the game.
But they traded Marcus Peters, who's looked really good, who's actually a really good corner, and they got nothing for him. So it's like, I don't know, and that's not really McVay's
did he have locker room issues too?
Yeah, that's true. That's true. But so you replace another locker room issue with another locker room issue with a little bit more prominent, like I don't know, who's a little bit more polarizing. But it seems like he's kind of learned a little bit from his time
doesn't have as many locker room issues. I think he's more of like an external problem. Like he has problems with guys on other teams. I don't really hear too much of him fighting with guys within the organization.
I guess so, yeah.
So you guys know me. My favorite thing in the world is player development, drafting, scouting, whatever it is. I look at it as there's 2 ways to build a team. You build a team through the draft and you polish with free agency, or you try to get only a little bit through the draft and you try to not spend a lot of money for agency until the time is right where you have the most and then go and splurge. And that's kind of what the Rams did. Again, certain draft picks went their way. Got to give credit to Aaron Donald, prime example. And then you can tell in that Super Bowl run, they bought a lot in free agency. They didn't just polish; they bought a lot.
On the defensive side, especially.
Just
Ndamukong Suh as well.
So this isn't cheap stuff. This is a lot of powerhouse guys, and let's be real. There's a reason they don't get re-signed. Whether it's maybe the play that you don't see off the field stuff, whatever. So basically, with this school of thinking for the Rams, the heat was already on a high burner. Now the pan's off the stove and the fire's almost out of control. So they're in a do or die circumstance to win. I give them 2 years. If they don't win either this year or next year, you can kind of say it's fair because you can tell some of those players aren't going to have patience. But for now, I'm sure a lot of them are very not happy, but they're probably like, all right, I didn't have the most faith in Goff. Now I have a lot of faith in Stafford. Seems like a great quarterback. Let's
he'll definitely get
or I'm leaving soon. I don't want to.
Who I'm really excited to see play under Matt Stafford is Cooper Kupp. Because a lot of people like Robert Woods. Like he's a phenomenal receiver, but I'm a big fan of Cooper Kupp, and I think Matt Stafford is going to make a lot out of him. I mean, he's played phenomenally under Goff and other past quarterbacks. I just love him as a route runner. And I could see that really opening up. I could see him almost taking like a Thielen role and being like a real top receiver next year.